So, I recently read my first Colleen Hoover book. Oh my gosh. Have you guys read any Colleen Hoover books?
No, but they're obviously all over social media.
Yes. Coho cult is a real thing. So I have a friend who recommended, or I have a friend who's read a bunch of Colleen Hoover, and she said that this book, Reminders of Him, was her favorite. So then I was like, okay, I'll try it. Well, I should specify it was her favorite Colleen Hoover book out of the ones she read. So I read it. I read it in a day. So that should say something. It was captivating. Um, it is a fiction book, but it's not fantasy. And it's about this girl who is dating this guy. She is driving after drinking. They crash. He dies. She gets sent to prison. But when she's about to go to prison, she finds out she's pregnant. And so the guy who died's parents get custody of the child. And so the book actually starts with her getting out of prison and going back to the hometown, his hometown, to try to have a relationship or like meet her daughter because she never even got to see her after she was born.
That sounds super dark and depressing.
So yeah, so she goes to this town and she's having a hard time getting a job um, because of her record. And she goes into this old bookstore that she used to go to that has now been turned into a bar. And she goes there thinking it's still a bookstore. It's not, but then meets like the bar owner who like asks her to come back later. So she does. They kind of start to have this like, they just like are talking or whatnot. And she finds out that it's her ex boyfriend's best friend. So that's a little bit of a spoiler. But anyway, so she's like trying to not let him figure out who she is. It's twisted. It's like kind of like a Maury show, like to where you can't not watch. You want to know the gossip and the details and like who's the daddy at the end, but in a very like quick read. I wouldn't say I'm a huge Colleen Hoover fan. I found it to be kind of like, I don't know, sad but captivating. I wouldn't necessarily read a ton more of hers because I like more of the fantasy realm. This was like even a little far fetched for like even real life. I don't know if all these coincidences would have happened, but as far as like an easy read, it was good. I would rate it maybe a C plus B minus.
So were the characters likable? Because they don't really sound likable.
Mm, there were some likable characters.
Okay.
I would say it did a good job of explaining like or having a lot of Easter eggs to where you're always trying to figure something out. Like there's not like a big reveal, like one big secret, but it's like multiple things along the way that have you keep turning the page.
Okay. I
And
think
it
that makes it that's hard. Like one of the things that makes like a bad book worse or better for me, right? Like if I like any of the characters, it's easier to stay engaged. But some books just like all have sucky characters. But this doesn't sound like the case.
yeah, I mean the main girl, like I mean she definitely fucked up. Like like there's a lot more to that night and to that story that you find out along the way. So it's not just clear cut and dry like when you first start the book and you hear some of the details you're like oh wow she was in the wrong but then you start hearing more about like the night of the wreck and like everything that led up to it and like what she's like really been dealing with on her own for years in prison and whatnot and now starting her life over all by herself. It's sad. It's like definitely a good reminder of like not nothing you ever want to have happen to you.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that's Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover.
What did you rate it?
I rated it like a C plus, B minus, because I did read it in a day. Like it was captivating enough to keep page turning. But I wouldn't say the writing was phenomenal or that I was like, oh, I have to read another book by her by any means. It was just a good short read.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I tried it. Well, we have a Colleen Hoover book for next book club, right?
I do.
And pick. All right. I'm excited. Is she a good writer, Madeline?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not like, you know how the one we're reading right now, what's her name? Who wrote Gallant?
The Shawab.
Yeah. So I feel like her writing is really good. It's like poetic almost at points to where like the word, like the sentences she puts together, I'm like, I would have never thought of that in a million years to write it like that. I feel like Colleen Hoover is easy to read because it's like things that you would just think of in your mind. It's like the conversations are ones that you would expect. They're typical. It's very straightforward, but it's not bad writing. It's just not like like poetic or romanticized or anything like that at all.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's like she's just telling like a movie, like as it happens, you know? Yeah. Okay, cool.